Hello, this is Terry at Fabric Junction in the beautiful Black Hills of South Dakota. And today I'm going to show you how to make your summertime runner. This is a complementary piece to our placemats that we did. Anyway, the runner takes 6.5-inch squares, and as you can see, I found a panel that used that printed these squares specifically. But if you don't have a panel, any beautiful fabric you want to put in there would work great. You can see here is my 6.5-inch squares, my stack of 3.5-inch background squares, some 2-inch background, 2 3/8, and 2 3/8 for a contrast. So the first thing we have to do is take our 2 3/8, and I need you to make a mark diagonally, and I use my seam marker. And sometimes what happens when I'm working with something this small, as you can see, if I line it up on the tip, I end up with the writing where I want to match up this point. And to make sure I get it matched up, I go ahead and shift so my line is right on that point. I keep shifting until I can see a line on this point. So there. And then I mark with my pencil, whether you're using your white or your regular pencil. I mark both sides. Okay, and I've already got these marked so that we can make our half square triangles. So we match up our contrast and our background, and now we're going to make our half square triangles. And I stitch on the line. But if you think your line gets too fat, stitch just to the inside of your line. So we'll go through and we'll match up a couple of these. I go through the whole stack, and I just keep sewing. Let the feed dogs pick it up. Keep sewing. Once I have my stack done, lift, and now I go back the other direction. We have them sewn, separate, cut. On small ones like this, I scissor cut. If they were larger, a lot of times I'll use my rotary. Now we're going to press to the dark. There we go. Sometimes little pieces are hard to get them to separate. There we go. Our next step, of course, is getting rid of the dog ears. And now we want to set up our block. So we start with our 2-inch squares. Set those aside a moment. Line them up. And when I sew them like this, I do sew them in a set to create the next block. And I'll show you what I mean in just a second here. So I sew them in stacks like this, and then I only separate them as a block. So those two stay together. And I do that so when I open it up, I know these two go together. And if I did it right, they're in the right placement. I line up the seam allowance, moving my seam allowance one left and one right, and in this case kind of towards the less bulky side. And again, stitch, same thing with the second one. In there. I'm going to separate them, press, so now I have a block that looks like an hourglass. Once the hourglass are made, now we'll attach them to our larger block. Now you saw the sequence I did, so I'm going to pause right there because I know you know how to handle that, and I'll move it this way. But that's the block that we're going for that runs down the center of our runner. Then, to create the triangular shaped blocks, they're very, very simple, and to kind of keep this part easy for us to work with without working with teeny tiny pieces, again, I want you to make your half square triangles, and I have a couple extra here that are already made. The difference here is when we attach, we're going to attach them to our 2-inch at that angle, okay? This is the look that I'm going for. So to accomplish that, sew them in this fashion. Lining them up. So a real quick press, and we'll add the other side. Put them back in place to make sure that I get my angles right. So this one will go to this side. And the difference is we don't have to sew all the way through it if you don't want to. And I generally don't. I start, I know I have to get past the seam allowance, and I stop. I do pick up my next one. What I do with this one is I just take it as an angle like this and let it stitch off to the side, because those stitches aren't going to show anywhere. When I get to my last one, of course, all I have to do is cut my thread. So now we have created the start of our triangle block using our half square triangle technique, keeping it all nice. And with that now, kind of in the same fashion, we line it up with our 3.5-inch square. So with the same thing, so one side, quick press, and the other side. And again, I know I only have to go a little ways past the seam allowance. other side. And we're going to press that one. There she goes. Okay. Next step is to get your straight edge, and we're just going to trim it now. And what you need to do is find your 1/4 inch line on your straight edge. And you would like that 1/4 inch line, ideally you want it to go through the point, the tip. You want to have a 1/4 inch seam off of the intersection of each one of these. And sometimes they'll line up real straight. I'm straight there, I'm straight there. I'm just a hair off there. Looking good. Keep going. I got to get close to this one. So I'm here. That one looks good, and then now that one is off. The ideal, there we go, that looks good. That one looks good. That one's just a tiny, tiny bit high, but I can live with it because this one looks good, this one looks good, and this one looks good. So that gives me a 1/4 inch seam allowance, because if you cut right through those, then your seam allowance ends up clear up here. But we want to make sure that we have that 1/4 inch seam allowance when we create our triangle. Now when you get ready to lay out your blocks, this particular one is done at an angle. So lay out your first block and then start putting your 6.5 inch squares on either side. The triangle will go on the outside. Another one of your blocks will go on the inside. Let's see, I can lay out a little bit more with what I have here. And this one goes here. Now when you go to sew these, you will sew at an angle to your piece. So you'll actually sew this little row together here. Then you'll sew this row together. And that's the way you'll work. And if you can look on our regular placemat, you can see this is the row you sewed together. That's this one here. And then this one. And then this one. And then you sew them to each other. And you'll eventually have your row going right down the middle. So I hope you have fun making our summertime runner and the coordinating placemats. And thank you for watching us here at Fabric Junction.